Deep down, I know that you clicked this video largely because you saw an attractive girl in the thumbnail, but I like to think that it's also because you guys kind of enjoy my videos. But either way, when you saw the girl, a primal part of your brain triggered, and this is the same part of your brain that causes you to walk to the kitchen whenever you get hungry. You see, all of us have desires or things that we desperately want. Some of these things we truly need, and some of them we don't. The difference between a man who gets all the girls and a man who doesn't is directly linked to this primal part of our brain, but more importantly, how we respond to it. And it has everything to do with our desires. Now, this thing that we call life is not exactly the friendliest to us. And oftentimes, life throws things our way that we never really saw coming. And my ex-girlfriend can vouch for that. So what you have to understand is that most men are controlled by something. Controlled by what? Most men are constantly jerked around by their desires. According to an ancient quote, the glitter of gold should never dazzle the eyes more than the flash of a sword. You see, most guys are drawn to their desires like a moth to the flame. You're browsing YouTube, and suddenly a pole vaulting video with a girl wearing, well, not very much at all, gets recommended to you on your homepage. I know, it's really weird. It's happened to me many times. I've never actually watched one of these videos in my life, but enough guys across YouTube obviously couldn't shake their desire to click the video, so now we're kind of all in this weird, awkward situation. You see, most men are utterly trapped by their desires and by their fears, or more specifically, by their emotions. Now, as we all know, most really feminine girls tend to act more with their emotions than they do with their logic. So if you become a slave to your emotions, what does that make you? Now, a little known secret is that one of the most unattractive things that a guy can do around girls is to what? It's to be emotional. Did you guys know that it's not the content of an insult that actually makes us so angry? It is our interpretation of that content. It's what we think that it meant that stirs our emotions, not what the other person had in mind. Or in other words, it's mind over matter. It always has been. Before Neo could stop bullets with his hand, he had to get his mind right. In life, we are constantly bombarded by events or by people that aim to stir up our emotions, and when we give in, what happens? We end up losing all control. And when we lose all control, we get really emotional and we get really angry, and bad things usually happen. So what does this have to do with girls? The answer is everything. The guy who gets all the girls is the guy who has realized that, put simply, there is no spoon. Emotions cannot be eliminated, because if they could, then we would no longer be human. So the goal here is not to eliminate our emotions, but it is instead to tame them. Now, the difference between the guy who gets all the girls and the guy who doesn't is that the guy who doesn't has not yet learned how to tame his emotions. Whenever we're dealing with girls, there's going to be times where we feel angry, and there's going to be times when we feel anxious. There'll also be times when we feel really happy. And one of the greatest strengths that we can have is controlling how we deal with these emotions. Now, as men, oftentimes, our greatest weakness is actually our inability to tame our desires and to tame our emotions. Fear, like many things, is an emotion. And girls know that most men cannot tame their desires and they cannot tame their emotions. The reality is that every guy out there is going to feel some sort of desire when he sees a good-looking woman. So the difference, then, is how he handles that desire. Is he able to acknowledge it and then tame it? Or, like every other guy, does it simply enslave him, just like it does to 99% of you out there? It's all just simply a paradox. Show interest in a girl, then pull away, and then magically, she becomes far more interested in you. But ask yourself this: how can you pull away if you are a slave to your emotions? If you are a slave to your desires? The guy who gets all the girls is the guy who has the greatest control over his emotions. The guy who gets the girl is the one who has the greatest control over his desires. So guys, leave the lotion on the bathroom counter where it belongs. Work on taming your emotions and your desires so that you don't become slaves to them. And sooner rather than later, you might just find that you become more like the guy who girls can't stop chasing, rather than the guy who they're always running away from. And with that said, until next time, thanks for watching.